There are game systems out there that have been vastly successful. Advanced Squad Leader is most likely the system that is the most successful, that has had the highest number of iterations, of installments. But another very successful one that has been around for quite a while now is Great Battles of History, a system that allows players to recreate battles from the ancient times, from really early antiquity to pretty much early Middle Ages. And it's a system that has been around for so long, and yet somehow I've never played it. I feel like I'm the only war gamer in the world that hasn't played it yet, or that I would say that had not played it yet, because I'm here to tell about it right now because I have played it and I have some ideas to share with you in this video. I don't know how that happened, that it took me so long. Well, you have to start from somewhere, which means that you're playing something and you're not playing something else. Something you're always missing. Finally, I've decided to fill this gap in my wargaming education, and I played the Great Battles of History system. However, I haven't started from the full game. The system comes in two versions. One is the full version, which is the one described in the manuals that you find in the games in the system. And then there's an expansion, a module, an add-on, call it whatever you like, which is called Simple Great Battles of History, which is what I'm going to tell about in this video. It is an add-on consisting of a rulebook with a leaner, more streamlined, more accessible set of rules. That is, you have a set of rules that allows you to play the battles in the games in the system with just less rules to learn, and also faster, shorter playing time. So it is a good way to be introduced to the system if it's a case such as mine, in which you now play the system and you don't see any reason why you had to start from the complicated stuff. You don't see any reason why not to take things easy and get through the learning curve gradually. That's what I decided to do. Or maybe you are an experienced player, you have played the full system and you're considering having the option from time to time to play your block battles in less time or maybe with less procedures. So there are two types of gamers that may be interested in Simple Battles of History. So this add-on has the manual, which is a self-sufficient manual. You do not need to know the rules of the full manual. And then there are the two components. One is a playbook, which gives you modified setup instructions and modified scenario rules for the scenarios that you will play. And then you also have a player aid with combat tables and other information, which is specific to simple great battles of history. So you have everything you need to play the game, with the exception of the game. You do need to have at least one of the games in the system, and not all the games in the full system are playable in the simple version. Caesar is playable, Conquest of Gaul, Alexander, and definitely Cataphract, which is the one that I played. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about Simple Great Battles of History, only about the system, about the rules, but I'll be using Cataphract because I need a game to show it, to show you the system to you. There will be another video in the future in which I will tell you about Cataphract per se, the battles that you have there, the stuff that you find in there. In this video, we are going to talk about Simple Great Battles of History. There are two kinds of units in this game. Leaders, such as this one, and normal, regular combat units. Combat units have a code in letters that indicates the type of unit that is. Then there's a number in the bottom right corner indicating movement allowance. Then we have troop quality, which is a crucial factor used for a lot of checks. And then we have size, and that is the yellow number printed in the red box. Units may also have a letter printed in a red circle, and that indicates that the unit has range attacks, has the ability to attack by using ranged weapons, and also the letter indicates the type of attack, the type of weapon that is. For example, that is a letter B category. Other units have other letters to indicate different types of ranged units. Leaders have a lot of numbers printed on them, but actually only 2 of these numbers are used in simple great battles of history. And those numbers are respectively the one in the bottom left corner of the counter, which is the command range, and the other one is the initiative, which is used when players trying to steal initiative. The game is divided in player turns, and players alternate activating the units, but there is a chance, like in other war games, to steal initiative from the opponent. The leaders will have a certain amount of times that they can try to steal initiative from the opponent. You record that number by using numerical markers that you place with the leader that has, well, a limited amount of tries. When you want to steal initiative from the opponent, you roll a die, a d10, that is the type of die that is used in this game. If you roll equal to or less than the initiative of your leader, then you manage to steal the initiative and you can go instead of your opponent. Otherwise, there's no particular bad consequence, but for the fact that you wasted one of your attempts and you simply record that. For example, leader had 2, now only has 1 because he wasted the opportunity. When it is your turn to activate a formation, well, you do precisely that. You activate a formation, which means you can activate a leader in the formation that is commanded by that leader. Some formations may not have leaders, but then you activate all of the units that belong to that leader under that leader. All units commanded by the leader that you activated do activate whether they're in command or not. However, only units that are within command range of the leader, in this case would be, for example, 5, only those units can move and attack fully without restrictions. Units that are out of command cannot move adjacent to enemy units, in case they're not adjacent yet, and quite the opposite, if they are in an enemy zone of control, then they cannot spend movement allowance. So if they're not close to an enemy, they cannot get too close to an enemy, they cannot get adjacent. If they are close to an enemy, they stay close to that enemy, they stay in the enemy zone of control. When it is your turn to activate your unit, it is your turn, well, you can activate a leader, or you can choose actually to move your overall commander, or you can simply choose to pass. But frankly, activating leaders and units is the most fun stuff. When you activate a leader and the units of that formation, then those units can move and or missile fire if they have that capability. You can fire with the units before you move, during movement, or after movement. After you have resolved that phase of moving and or using range attacks, you resolve shock combat, which is, well, pretty much melee combat. Now, as for movement, units move up to their full movement allowance, which is indicated on the counters. Movement expenditure is affected by terrain. In Cataphract, the game that I'm playing right now, there aren't many terrain features to worry about. Well, there is a little river here, but it's not a main thing. In any case, that's the general idea. You spend movement points depending on the terrain that you are crossing or entering, and also units have a facing. The 2 sides, the 2 axes on top of the units are always facing a corner. The 2 sides are the front, the lateral sides are the flanks, and the opposite sides are the rear. Units can only move in their front axis. That means that in order to go in different directions, they need to pivot, and to pivot also a unit needs to spend movement points. When you enter the zone of control of an opponent, you have to stop movement. And, well, you move another unit, and on after you are done moving all your units, you have to resolve combat. Range attacks. Range attacks depend on the type of range weapon that the unit has. There is a table that is used to resolve range attacks, and it is this one. You look at the line that corresponds to the type of weapon that you're using, C weapons, A weapon, J weapons, and so on and so forth. You roll a die, and you modify that based on several possible modifiers, which are listed here. And the number that you need to roll or to to roll equal to or less than is the number of the the intersection between the type of weapon that you're using and the range. For example, if an archer is firing at an enemy, which is at 1 hex of distance, then that archer needs to roll 8 or less after the modifiers. All the way up to 5, then the archer needs to roll 1 or less. Not that easy, especially when you take into account the modifiers and you see that many modifiers actually are positive, which is bad for the firer. It means that they make it harder for the firing unit to hit the opponent. If you hit the opponent with a missile unit, then you inflict a hit, and the hits inflicted on the enemies are kept track of, again, by using these numerical markers. There's a bunch that come with the game, and you place these numerical markers under the unit to indicate the cohesion hits that the opponent has taken. After movement and after range combat, then you have shock combat, which may be mandatory in some cases, optional in others. Units that are in the zone of control of an enemy have to attack all units in their zone of control. So if you're in somebody's zone of control, then you have to try to attack people that you can potentially attack if you have somebody in your zone of control. If you have somebody in your zone of control and you are not in theirs, then it is optional. You can choose whether or not to attack. Once attacks have been declared and need to be resolved, the basic idea is super simple. The basic idea is you roll a die, you apply modifiers, and then you look at the result, and that tells you the effects that that attack has on the attacker and on the defender. The effects may be a certain number of cohesion hits, hits and retreat, routing, or hits and retreat. And you have to roll a die and to check the quality, the true quality of the unit to determine which of the two results apply. If the unit routes, in which case it is removed from the game, or if it is reduced and if it retreats. And similar things happen here. So very key, very basic idea here. What makes things more complex and of course adds interest and depth to the game is the number and type of modifiers. There's a modifier based on the weapon system. Certain types of units will be more effective against certain others. So to find the modifier that has to do with the weapons, you need to compare the type of unit that is attacking with the type of unit that is defending, so that this table factors in a lot of things about the quality of the weapons, the armor, and the agility of the defender. And you use different tables in case there is a frontal attack or in case you're looking for the modifiers for a flank rear attack. That is, again, you cross-reference. Suppose that you have light infantry that is attacking heavy cavalry, then you have a modifier of -1 for that thing, for the weapon system. TQ, troop quality differential, then you simply compare the troop qualities and you turn the difference into a modifier. A positive modifier for the attacker, a negative modifier for the defender, depending on which side has the advantage. Size ratio, if one side is at least 2 size points greater than the other, then there is a point of bonus if it is the attacker that gets that advantage, or a -1 if the defender is great. Basically, the idea is that lower results are good for the defender and bad for the attacker. High results are good for the attacker and bad for the defender. That means that some of these modifiers, such as differential and size ratio, become positive or negative depending on the side that they are they're giving some benefit to. Hits. As I said, you need to keep track of the hits that are assigned to units by using those markers. The attacker subtracts all hits on his units as a modifier. My unit is attacking, has 2 hits, then I get -2. And the defender, however, adds the hits to the attack. The defender has 1 hit, and I'm attacking that unit, then I get a +1 for attacking a unit that has 1 cohesion hit. Leaders also give modifiers, and there can be other modifiers based on terrain. Like in other games that portray cavalry and other fast units, there is the possibility in certain cases to retreat before combat. Skirmishers, light infantry, and cavalry can retreat before combat. That is, they can avoid combat if they have a movement rating which is higher than that of the opponent. There are a couple of other maneuvers of that sort. When resolving combat, there is also a chance that the leader will die. You roll a die. On a roll of 0, the leader that is involved in the combat becomes a casualty. But other than that, this is pretty much the basic idea. Moving, resolving range combat, and resolving melee combat is pretty straightforward. Then you apply hits, and when the number of hits on a certain unit is equal to or exceeds the size of the unit, then the unit is removed. If it is a unit that only has one side. Some units have a reduced side, in which case you simply flip the unit, and then you retain some original hits, and it will take some extra hit for that unit to be completely eliminated. Victory is assessed on rout levels, that is, on damage inflicted on the opponent. Different scenarios may have different conditions, but what I've seen so far pretty much bases victory around elimination of enemy units. You may also have units that have special rules, so for example artillery or elephants, phalanxes, German cavalry. These are units that have special rules, but none of these are represented in Cataphract, so I think it also just so happens that Cataphract is probably a good game to get started with the Great Battles of History system and also with the simple Great Battles of History. No, this is definitely a good system. It is simple, yes, it definitely is simple. The word in the title is not there by chance. Simple to the point that this could even be, I believe, an introductory war game, especially if you choose scenarios that do not have too many special rules. If you choose a set like Cataphract that doesn't have many special units, doesn't have large units, doesn't have elephants, doesn't have a lot of that have the Romans that also behave in strange ways. From time to time they have special abilities that the units do not have. If you choose a pretty basic game and you combine that with a simple set of rules, this could easily be your first war game. I think it's perfectly accessible. Some 14-15 pages of rules, but really just a couple of core concepts, well explained. Yeah, actually the rulebook does do a very good job of explaining the game. Nevertheless, the game has a remarkable level of depth and detail. Even in its simple version, there's just a lot that has been hardwired in the system. For example, the weapon matrix or matrices, depending on the direction of the attack. There's a lot of information that is factored in there, and you do not have to worry about a million rules. You simply look up on the table the modifiers that apply, and there is a lot of historical detail that is factored in that comes to light because of that. And on the first couple of turns, you do have to go through the modifiers and you calculate troop quality difference, the size. The first couple of turns, even in the simple system, take a while to get used to all the procedures that you have to come up with, that you have to implement when calculating the modifiers. But then you roll the die and that's it. It's pretty straightforward. It really is. And after a while, things start feeling very, very natural. You just look at the situation in a couple of seconds, you know the modifier. The game is also very solitaire friendly. I played all of the battles that I played in solitaire mode. It works perfectly. There is enough uncertainty to make it suitable for playing both sides by yourself at the best of your possibilities. For example, the fact that initiative can be stolen from the opponent and you do not know whether or not you'll be able to do it. That does add a lot of unpredictability. Fun stuff. And the battles really feel nice, feel tight. I did play small battles, which are the ones that are included in this package. I assume that other boxes, other sets have larger battles, but these battles really have their own mini narrative, their own narrative arc, their own progression. They felt very tight and very nicely self-contained. Some felt a little bit scripted, maybe, but actually I realized that here I'm going towards the review of Cataphract. As for the system is one that when you have a small battle allows you to have a very tight self-contained experience with depth, with detail, but it doesn't feel burdensome, that doesn't detract from the narrative of the battle. The mechanics do enrich the play experience, do enrich the historical feel of the game without burdening you, without making the game heavy or too procedural. I definitely like that. In terms of the procedures, actually there's just one thing that I find less than ideal, which is the fact that you do have to do a little bit of bookkeeping to keep track of cohesion hits and other factors by moving markers, numerical markers. You replace a 2 marker with a 3 marker, you flip the 3 marker to the 4 marker, and then replace that with a 5 marker, and so on and so forth. I at the beginning placed the markers, the numerical markers under the units, then I got tired because it adds an extra step every time you have to replace it. You lift up your unit, change it, lift up, change it. I just started stacking the markers on top of the units. The game looks a little less gorgeous because you have bunches of numbers with units hidden underneath, but it works more fluidly that way for me, which to me is still something that emphasizes the gameplay experience, even though it may reduce the aesthetical quality of the experience as you look at the map and the situation doesn't look as gorgeous as thematic. But the thing comes out from the mechanics, comes out from the history. If you do not see the art on the counters at all times, that to me is a small price to pay. Good system. I enjoy playing the system. This is really a system that I'm happy I learned, and I'm glad that there are many more battles that I can play in the system. I'm going to play more battles in the system, definitely. I'm going to play Cataphract a little bit more, so in a couple of days there should be a video out in which I tell you about Cataphract specifically, which is the game that I used to play simple battles of history, but it's a great system, and it's great that once you learn the system you can apply it to so many games. It does make me curious about the full system, which is one that I will try at some point, and at that point I'll be able to compare. But as of now, I'm really happy that I learned this game. I'm really happy that I learned the system. It's a lean core of rules with a lot of depth, a lot of detail, and a lot of fun that you can have with, which frankly is quite a good description, or better, is a description of something that definitely is a good product. Nice system. I like how it creates the theme. I like how it gives you an historical feel. It creates a narrative, which is pretty much what I look for when I'm trying to a new game system, and this one passed the test. Big thumbs up from me.